so I don't forget that. I got to talk myself through all of this. Well, officially, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Anna Mondragon. I'm one of the people here at TEA that gets the privilege of working with the other two who are here and help facilitate some of these webinars. But we've got one important topic on the agenda for today with Lori Merrill. I just wanted to remind everyone, please use the Q&A feature. We won't answer them live, but if there's things that you need that you think maybe your ESE can't answer, we always guide people to the ESEs first. Pop them in there and then we'll shield them and kind of look at them and see if we can respond to any of them. Also, this is recorded, so in about a week, I will post the link to the recording in the exact same spot that you got to the view button, or join the webinar. So those are just a few housekeeping rules. So thank you again, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Lori. You've got lots to share today, I know.
Yes, definitely. Thank you guys so much and happy afternoon. We're close to the weekend, so it's always good that these webinars are on a Thursday. Before I get into the actual presentation, I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find the resources that I'm going to share because we have tried to make sure that we have these posted and ready for you guys. So um, let me get my computer to open up on the right screen first off, and then we will go from there. So got that. Share. Let's see. All right, everybody's seeing that differentiated monitoring and support webpage.
Just about to pop up. There it
All right,
popped up.
perfect. So if you Google TEA DMS, this page should pop up for you. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see that this is where we have posted all of our clarification process documents. This may seem odd if in the past you're used to going to this state performance plan webpage that we're usually used to with all the different cards for all the different indicators, and then toward the bottom were the clarifications. We made the decision as an agency earlier in the year that this clarification process is much more of a monitoring event than it really is a data collection or a data piece connected to that state performance plan. So we moved everything over to our monitoring and support page. And there you can see this top bullet is the PowerPoint that I'll be reviewing with you guys today. So if you want to grab that so that you can kind of follow along, make some comments on your own copy to support and assist as you guys process through clarifications in about a month or so. And then there's other helpful documents, including that verification workbook, the considerations you and your team can make as you're determining whether or not to participate in this pre-finding clarification process, as well as a helpful one-pager that kind of outlines the timeline and the documents required. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing this part and I'm going to hop on over to the presentation and get all ready to walk you guys through. Those of you that have participated in this presentation in the past, you'll notice that it is very similar. We did not make a whole bunch of changes this year. Instead, what we really focused on was maintaining a process that all of us are familiar with and have engaged in. So with that, I'm going to share. Um, Hopefully you guys are seeing the first slide, the title slide. Awesome. All right. And I'm going to move the little help bars and everything off of this main screen so that I don't get tripped up while presenting. And then we'll get started. So as it says on the invite and the title for this webinar, we are just going over that state performance plan indicator, that clarification process. So this process kicks off after that submission time frame. So today's objectives are to really understand that purpose of clarifications, determine that participation decision making, what the requirements are to engage in the clarification, submissions that we need. And then if your LEA is electing not to participate, what do you need to do to ensure that we don't keep emailing you asking if you're going to participate or not? So the purpose of clarification. After that annual TSDS SPP application close date, any LEA that met the submission deadline for each indicator and reported less than 100% can submit clarifications containing evidence of pre-finding corrections for SPPI 11A, B, 12, and 13. So it's real important to note here that LEAs that get to opt in or opt out of clarifications are those LEAs who meet the submission deadline. So for SPP 11A, B, and 12, that's that July deadline. And for 13, that's the August deadline. If you do not make your submissions by those deadlines, you will not be eligible to participate in the pre-finding correction clarification process. So LEAs who certify less than 100% by that data submission timeline, you'll have two choices for your indicators. You can participate in clarifications or you can opt out and do nothing, which basically means we'll have one step for you to do, which is to let us know that you're not going to participate. And then you have nothing left to do until you receive your notification of noncompliance at the end of the process. So we're kind of in this space right now where we're going to prepare for clarification. So hopefully you and your team have been reviewing your submissions data. You've been kind of generating those monthly reports to see how you're tracking and trending over the course of the past school year. You're identifying any potential non-compliance. So during this phase and determining whether or not you're going to participate in clarifications, some real important housekeeping pieces, not only for this process, but kind of all processes as the LEA begins another school year of engagement. And that is to really make sure that you're verifying and updating those points of contact, email addresses, names, phone numbers in Ask TED. We as an agency rely on Ask TED to get our contacts for everything. So any communications that comes from my team, complaints, any division here at the agency, we rely on Ask TED. So it's real important that if you know you're having staffing changes, which we know happens during this time of the year, that you're quick to update Ask TED fields. Any LEA who meets the criteria to engage in clarifications will receive notification from our team on September 16th. If by September 17th, early in the morning, you still don't have an email from our team and you've checked your junk mail and you've checked all your emails and made sure that whoever's listed in Ask TED from the superintendent level or the special ed director, if you've checked and no one has received it, go ahead and reach out to your ESC and let them know that you have not received your any level of notification indicating that clarifications process is open. Otherwise, you should receive that notification from us on the 16th. In that notification, and we'll go over this a little more in a second, is a form for all LEAs to complete. And in that form, you're just selecting, will you be participating? If so, on which indicators? And if you won't be participating, indicating that. That form is due to us on that 18th. That ensures that we are monitoring your document submissions and connecting with you during the clarification window to ensure you have the proper opportunity to engage with our team in this process. Be sure to check that email, check your spam folders. You should receive something either from Ascend. That may be the email address. It may say info@Ascend. It may say monitoring review. But you will be able to tell by the subject line that it is related to clarifications process. If we don't hear back from an LEA, we assume you're not participating. So that is why it's really important to ensure that if you know you submitted by the timeline and you have not received any type of notice or communication from our team, that you connect with your ESC so that they can reach out to us and we can ensure that we deliver that information to you. When it comes to the clarification process, decision making, there's two paths that lead to this clarification process. The first one is a pre-finding correction. So pre-finding corrections defined and may occur during the clarification process when the LEA has violated an IDEA requirement, but the agency has yet to issue a finding. So if we as an agency can verify that before issuing any findings, the LEA is correctly implementing the specific regulatory requirements based on a review of updated data, such as data subsequently collected through monitoring, if applicable, has corrected each individual case of child-specific noncompliance, unless that child is no longer within the jurisdiction of the LEA, and has no existing corrective action under a TEA complaint or due process hearing decision for the same child, then we can consider a pre-finding correction. The other path for pre-finding correction are kind of those data system corrections. So data entry event that resulted in a non-compliance, absent report discrepancies, calendar corrections, data system errors, transfer student coded incorrectly in your submissions, and any other documentation provided by the LEA that indicates that the student is actually compliant, not non-compliant. It is important to note that engaging in the clarification process does not automatically guarantee pre-finding correction and compliance. We have to meet all of these expectations to make that determination of pre-finding correction and then to adjust that compliance rate. So we do have LEAs who participate, submit all of the elements, but because one or more of these pieces is not able to be determined, we cannot pre-finding correct. So participation in the clarification process, it is optional. It's not guaranteed, it's not required, it is optional for the LEA to choose to participate. When an LEA is determining participation in the clarification process, it's important for the LEA to complete the following steps. So review the data entered and completed/certified during that data entry period, both in the TSDS system for 11A, B, and 12, and for that TEAL system for indicator 13. Make sure that you have looked at all of that to ensure that you have every indicator accounted for. We have had instances where an LEA submits clarification documentation, let's say for 11A, and they were out technically on 12 and 13 as well, but weren't aware because of submission practices in their district, and they missed that window for clarification and the opportunity to clarify for all indicators that were eligible for clarification. So just be sure you take a look and ensure that each indicator is at that percent completion, percent compliance as you knew it to be. Once you've reviewed your documentation and your data, go ahead and complete that participation form. You'll receive the form inside of the email that's alerting you that the clarification window has opened. So that's that September 16th email that you'll receive from our team. And there will be a link to a form. Form is a very simple form to fill out. Got 2 or 3 questions on it. Not a heavy lift of a form, and it just alerts us and allows us to track on your behalf that we are gathering all the information and that we know who to expect information from. We ask that that form be completed by the 18th so that we can monitor submissions and ascend correctly and accurately. And then you'll go ahead and complete the steps in the SPPI clarification participation follow-up email. So in that form, when you indicate, yes, we would like to participate, these will be the indicators. Your assigned contact will then connect with you and provide in an email everything that would be required to be considered for review in the clarification process. And we'll go over that here in a couple slides. Once we gather all the information and that clarification window closes, our team then reviews anything that we can make that pre-finding correction on, we make. And then we recalculate compliance and make those final determinations at the end of the month. We do rely on only the data that's submitted in Ascend. So we don't go and look for data any other place. We don't look through data that is emailed to us. All data, all evidence must be uploaded into Ascend. If there is knowledge of an Ascend issue or an upload issue, our team will provide you a secure file link so that we're not sending sensitive student level data over email. When it comes to clarification requirements, every LEA must submit the items you see on your screen. We know that this seems overwhelming sometimes because when pre-finding correction cannot be established and your district still has the result of a corrective action plan, sometimes we are asking you for these items again. In those situations when the items are being asked again, that indicates that during our review, the root cause, the concern, the element that was identified as the piece of training or the operating procedure edit that's needed was missing from what was originally submitted to us during the clarification window. So our promise to you is that if you submit it and it is accurately written, it just wasn't practiced correctly and we couldn't pre-finding correct. If what's documented, what's been trained is accurate, we're not going to ask you to resubmit it to us. If we're asking you to resubmit one of these items, it's because there's a missing element during the review. So we get that question asked often of us. We do it meaningfully. So we ask you to do this up front because these are all the 5 required elements that we have to identify to make those pre-finding correction determinations. And then during that corrective action process, we have to be able to say that, yes, these have been updated if an update was required. Otherwise, we will not ask you to resubmit. This outlines just a little in a greater detail each one of those items. So that child-specific correction, you'll complete the SPPI verification workbook for each indicator. You'll see that at the bottom of the workbook, there's a tab for each indicator and there's fields. In a couple of slides, we'll go over those fields in a little more detail. Procedures, operating procedures related to the indicator. So if you're looking at 11A, that timely initial evaluation, we want to see the procedures and we want to see that it's responsive to what you've identified as the root cause. So if it's miscalculation, if it's data entry errors, really identifying in those revised procedures the steps you'll take to ensure that your evaluators, your data entry, whomever it is who's responsible for that data piece or the issue that was identified, has steps to carry out to ensure compliance. Any training artifacts that address those specific indicators, like I said, we're kind of in this unique window, right? You just finished the 1 school year. You guys are going to submit your data in July into August, and school years are already going to start up. So if you've been keeping an eye on what's tracking as your areas, or you just have standing PD that you do at the beginning of every year, some of these training artifacts may be from the current school year that's just ending or the upcoming school year. So we just ask, show us that what you've identified as the issue that resulted in the noncompliance, that you're addressing it with your team through professional development. A plan for self-monitoring to ensure that the noncompliance does not become systemic in nature. And then that current compliance evidence that you're clarifying. So that's that attestation form that we ask for, where basically it's we've uploaded the students in the verification workbook. We attest that we've made all of those corrections and we have no additional non-compliance to be reported. So as I said, the student level correction workbook, we've added a little more detail to it this year. For us to truly process the pre-finding corrections and be able to determine if a LEA can be found as pre-finding corrected, we have to have all the fields of this workbook complete. We routinely receive workbooks that 1 or more column has an NA or maybe is left blank. We understand that sometimes it feels like the column may not apply to the scenario or the situation. So we added a little bit of information at the beginning and the end of the workbook to guide more of the conversation and the completion of the columns. So for some of those kind of data corrections, while there may not be a need for a student level correction that required a compensatory ed decision date, instead of putting NA, we're asking that you explain to us. Because it was a data entry, it didn't result in a need for compensatory education, and therefore there was no decision. But we met and we discussed, and once we determined that it was a data correction, we knew that there was no need. NA, we don't know if it was NA not needed, NA didn't happen, NA truly isn't applicable. So we're asking that you spell it out inside the workbook for us so that we can make valid determinations. This again just gives a little bit of an example of how to complete it. So again, all fields completed, no NAs. So completely okay to say not needed because it tracks to a clerical entry error and there's a root cause that explains exactly what the error was, which allows the reviewer to understand that I wouldn't expect to see a comp ed offering for this because this was data entry. This wasn't an actual impact on the student versus there being an actual student level correction needed, and then the documentation and the information provided after to allow us to make the determination. Again, we've kind of talked through this, so I'll just let you read it. But again, when it comes to those procedures, really ensuring that when we're asking you to review and revise procedures as it relates to that root cause of noncompliance, that we see that change, that we see it captured, to ensure that processes are being put in place to prevent that noncompliance in future instances of reporting. So what happens next? You will receive that initial email. You'll indicate in the form, yes or no, you're going to participate. Your point of contact will send you a formal email with all the required elements to participate in the pre-finding clarification process. All the documentation is uploaded in Ascend. If we have any questions, your point of contact will outreach you asking, is this everything that you plan to submit? Are these all the indicators? Are you finished with your uploads? And then we will begin our review once we have confirmation from you that that is everything or the window closes. We have a very tight timeline, so we cannot extend the window. And I'll go over the window here in the next couple slides. And just that reminder that participating in the clarification process does not guarantee non-compliance will be resolved. Every submission will be reviewed. If we are not able to pre-finding correct and clear through clarifications, we will send those written notifications of non-compliance in late October. Okay, so uploading those clarification requirements in Ascend. Most important, be sure that you select the 25-26 school year dropdown from the Ascend dashboard. We will go search, but if we're searching, there's a greater chance we're going to miss something. So it's really helpful if we can all start off on the same school year looking at that 25-26 dropdown on the dashboard. And then there's just instructions on how you can find the file transfer widget towards the bottom of your dashboard screen, and then how you can utilize the select document type. For all SPP clarification submissions, we're looking for that SPED supporting documentation. So that's what we should be selecting for the document type. We do have naming procedures. We ask to name as close as possible to these. Again, it helps us get our eyes to the correct one and not, I mean, for those of you that are engaged with us already, you know, you may be submitting current SPP CAP documents, maybe cyclical review documents, maybe targeted review documents, other engagements with us, plus the clarification all around the same time. It helps us to make sure that, again, that we don't overlook anything in the system by utilizing this naming function. So once you've submitted all that clarification documentation in Ascend, we will communicate that receipt of submission or communicate, is this everything? Once you confirm, then we'll communicate that receipt. If we need additional information, we will reach out to you, and that successful completion of the clarification process requires all submissions to be uploaded in Ascend during that September 16th and September 30th window. It's very important to try to get your information uploaded earlier in the window. If on the close of business on September 30th, you upload your documentation, we have no more of the window to go back and forth to ask for additional information from you. Again, it's just the timelines that we have to abide by to get all of this data back to the data team to be able to process it for every other data piece that relies on federally required elements are tied to these indicators, your overall SPP compliance, RDA, and all of that. So our window is very short on our end. So the sooner in the big window you guys are able to upload your documentation, the better chance that we can communicate back and forth. Otherwise, on close of business September 30th, when we begin our final reviews, whatever's in Ascend is what will be reviewed. Anything submitted after that time will not be eligible for review. And if the submitted documents aren't complete, then we won't engage in the review for the clarifications, for the pre-finding corrections in the clarification process. All right. If your LEA is aware of the noncompliance and you know that there's nothing you can do to engage in the pre-finding corrections, or you're electing not to, We ask that you kind of follow some of the similar steps as the group that's opting in. So if you're choosing to opt out, we're asking that you review the data entered in both the TSDS and TEAL applications just one more time to make sure you're aware of all the indicators and their final status. Once you've done that, definitely just fill out that form by the 18th indicating that you're not participating. And then at the end of October, you'll receive your notification of noncompliance. All right, we're coming toward the end of our presentation. Just a couple handy resources for you. These are all linked to that DMS page that I showed you earlier. This is just a quick one-pager that provides an overview of the time frame to remind you of the window, when to expect your notifications, how the process flows. Also provides you with a list of those, like it's kind of a quick access list of the items that you'll need to have prepped and ready to upload into Ascend. It also has some reminders. Like I said, we're in that phase, right, where you guys are still in that process of finalizing your data and making those final submissions. So as you're doing that, as you're trying to determine how to run your own reports and see what your data is saying, here are the groups you can reach out to. So when it comes to clarification, so the piece after you do the submissions, and you're about to engage in that clarification process, that's our team. That's when you can reach out to us. But anything related to TSDS child find applications, 11A, 11B, 12, you're going to want to connect with either your TSDS champion in your LEA, your ESC TSDS champion, or TEA's TSDS team. They'll be able to walk you through how to read the screens, how to access the data, how to run any reports. If you're running into issues, that's the group that can support you with those TIM ticket submissions to ensure everything happens in a timely manner and everything's accounted for. If you're running into issues with your TEAL application for SPPI 13, you can reach out to your ESC, or you can email that SPP at tea.texas.gov. Our team won't be very helpful for the data entry piece. So that's why we always want to make sure to give you that TSDS group and the SPP group, because they are in those applications, can help you troubleshoot. And if there is something bigger going on than what we can solve for, they are the ones that are able to get in the system and get some supports and corrections there. The verification workbook we have also posted inside of Ascend. So if you are an LEA that is able to engage by meeting the timeline and you're electing to participate, you will be able to find the evidence workbook inside of the Ascend required resource requirements on the dashboard. It is also a good time of year to make sure that everyone who needs to has access and the correct access to the Teal Ascend application. So really making sure you log in there. If you're a data entry, you have the ability to enter the data. If you're supposed to have access to the reports, the reviewer, all those pieces. Everyone who needs to access anything related to the SPPs, get in and make sure you have the correct Ascend access. Our team is the team that approves it from the state level, but there's usually a layer at your own district level. So if you're kind of pressing up against a timeline and you realize that someone doesn't have access, make sure you find out who locally is able to approve so that you can work that process through quickly on your end. And then we have several of our team members who monitor the TEAL application requests throughout the day. So we usually get them turned around pretty quick as long as your application is linked to a school district email. That's the most important piece. If it's linked to someone's personal Gmail, we kick it back. But if it's linked to your LEA email, we're pretty quick in getting those approved. That helpful document that we provided last year, it's been updated a little bit, but otherwise it reads pretty comparable to what you were familiar with in last year's process. It's a helpful guide, especially maybe you're new to having to participate in the clarifications process and you can't decide shouldn't you. There's some nice steps to walk through and process your data to see yes or no, do you have all the required elements to engage in the pre-finding clarification process. And then, as always, there's some really helpful tools and resources as you are entering into that final submission stage for all the indicators. And again, just those reminders of who to reach out to support that data entry and final submissions for each of the indicator. This is my team of managers. Of course, you guys get to interact with so many of our specialists, but we did want to provide some regional contacts. So if you do reach out to your ESC and or you have additional questions that maybe your ESC is not able to support you with, you can reach out to the specific manager of your region, and they can provide some guidance and or connect you with your assigned reviewer. If you are a charter LEA, feel free to ping me and I will connect you to your reviewer. For those of you that don't know, Scarlett Pappas, who you usually see her name as one of ours, she's transitioned to a director role on another part of the general supervision and monitoring team. So for right now, I'm helping any charters connect with their specialists. So feel free to outreach. Otherwise, this big review and support email, we all monitor it every day. So if you're uncertain who to reach out to, your ESC is always a great stop. They know how to find all of us at any given moment. Otherwise, you can ping us in this review and support mail, and we will get you all the answers. If you're like me, you sit in and you listen, and then you think of 20 questions the following day. If that is how you are learning too, feel free to ping us at the review and support at tea.texas.gov email address, and one of us will be able to answer your questions. So thank you guys for having me today. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Lori. And I can attest that if you do send the review and support at tea.gov, they will get back with you. The whole team does monitor it daily. So please send those in. I was able to actually answer a few questions as we went and put some links in there. So I think the Q&A feature does allow links, Lori, because I went ahead and put the link that you had shared right to where that was documented. But I appreciate you going through the steps of how to find it as well. So thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. That was our only topic, and good luck with any clarification that might be necessary by you in your district. So go ahead
Absolutely.
and stop.